Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another Bible letter from Blasphemers Bible lesson. And we have most of our assembled crew. We're missing a couple of people, but we have King Xerxes, who I think is going to be our featured reader of the day. How do you feel about that?
That works just fine for me, Aaron. Thank you.
All right. And of course, we have our closest thing we've got to a scholar en route. We have Lawrence Yufa. Welcome. Hello, sir. And Lilith Liberated, who is our dedicated student in this case, I think. Or I should say another dedicated student. And of course, my wife, who is wandered off camera.
Oh
There she is. Lalandra Ra.
no!
All right, so we are doing Genesis 8 today. And are we going to open with any comments? Anybody have anything to say before we get started?
I think we probably covered the bulk of it in the last episode when we started the flood. How this was a combination of probably two separate flood myths, and like that's why we get so many doublets and contradictions as well. So I think we have already covered the bulk of that in the last episode. So I think we should be good to go. I don't know if anyone else has.
Remind me, because I know about the flood. There's like one flood myth that the one with King Ziusudra that was apparently from like 2600 BCE, if that's correct, and then that was the inspiration for the one that we had in what was it, Atrahasis and the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then there was a later version as well that was emerging at about the same time as the Christian variant, and I forget what the name of that Noah was.
So there's there's Ziusudra, there's Atrahasis, and of course the Epic of Gilgamesh one. I forget the name in that one, but it's they what they show Utnapishtim. Okay.
Yeah.
So they all kind of resemble this this motif of like heavenly or divine destruction, I guess. And it was a very common way of getting the point across in ancient Near Eastern literature. So while a lot of people do say, it's plagiarized or whatever, I would say that it was not really plagiarized. They were just taking a very common storytelling motif at the time and rewriting it in their own way to suit their own purposes. And we get that now, kind of. A very common example is would you call West Side Story a plagiarism of Romeo and Juliet? Or is it just a modern retelling? So I would consider it a modern retelling of, like, they're putting in a entirely different setting, and for a different purpose as well. So, but it's essentially the same story. So it's likely that, first of all, an actual historical flood. I mean, flooding happens all the time, right? It hasn't been global. That's never happened. A global flood has just never happened. So in the case, so even though it says the whole Earth and whatnot, that wouldn't be accurate. If there was a historical flood, which they're like a historical, like really destructive flood, there probably was one, but it was localized to a certain area. But yeah, not global by any means.
I've read some archaeology on just the flood of Shuruppak, and they said that the depth of that flood, that the Euphrates River overflowed its banks and engulfed everything in what is already known as the Iraqi floodplain, and that the depth of that flood was estimated to be just over 20 feet, which coincidentally is the same depth as 15 cubits. So when the Bible says that everything was engulfed by 15 cubits, that's the same depth as this flood. Now it says that the high mountains were covered under that as well, but I think if you were to take the city of Shuruppak and engulf it under 22 feet or 15 cubits of water, you would wipe out just about everything that people could see, and it would be a dramatic, certainly a dramatic event for everybody, because there's no like there weren't any like trees or houses or anything that would be standing above that.
No.
Yeah.
Was that the real, that was the one where the king actually historically did commandeer a barge filled with stuff and just ride down the river and
Well, I
survive?
don't know about commandeer. As I understood it, the king Ziusudra was he had a barge, and these were like usually round boats,
Mhm.
and so it would be like a huge round bowl, and he had livestock already on it. And the way that they were getting them to market was, partly by flowing downstream, and then partly by punting, or by
Mhm.
having somebody tow the barge from with ropes from the side. But when the Euphrates overflowed, then this guy found himself off in the Persian Gulf, and of course his punting stick is now useless. and there he sits for a while.
Also, I forget what sea is it? Is it the Black Sea, or is it like I can picture it in my
If you're
head.
talking about the other flood for the Black Sea, that's significantly older. That was like 7,000 years ago,
Okay.
and equally dramatic and devastating, because it seems that the Black Sea filled up all at once
Oh
some
dear.
way. Yeah, around 7,000 years ago. So you have, and it's often happened, because we found evidence of villages and such that are now underneath the English Channel, and that sort of thing, where people are just living their day-to-day life, and then, hey, we're suddenly very wet.
I
I know exactly what that's like.
I'd like to add something here. Lawrence was talking about how there are elements of other stories, and everybody is in the Noah flood. I look at it like Christmas. Christmas was a pagan festival, and it still has elements of pagan festivals, like the Christmas tree, which is forbidden in the Old Testament to have taken to your house, any tree. And so like these little peaks of the older stories pop through, but they're kind of papered over, like, everybody knows what a Pizza Hut looks like. Maybe in the UK, I don't know, but it has this recognizable red roof, and as these close, people repurpose them for a Chinese restaurant or whatever, but you can still see the elements of the Pizza Hut there.
Mhm.
So that's what I think of when I read Noah's Flood, that there's those little fragments of older stories in it that got retold.
That's a really good analogy. I like that. Thanks. I should bring up, as one of the former creationists here, that those different stories, which all historians agree are long before the Bible, um, apologists will actually try and pretend that, of course, there's just stories from all over about floods, and these are all just an absolute affirmation of Noah's flood. And this has actually affected historically interactions with different tribes and nations all over the world. I'm trying to think of the Spanish explorer who, um, I don't know if it was in Hawaii or somewhere in the Pacific Islands, who took one of their local flood myths and then
Magellan.
could have been Magellan, could have been. That sounds right, but it could have
Yeah.
been another one. A lot of this happened where they took some local flood myth, retold it, and said, "Oh, this is a confirmation of Noah's flood story," even though like it had nothing in common originally, but after they tweaked it enough, it sort of sounded vaguely like it may have once been kind of ish related. Someone
Yeah.
once survived a flood in a boat. It's Noah.
So, yeah, Noah's incestuous ilk, all 8 of them, got off the boat and spread across the planet to the
Oh, yeah.
6 different inhabitable continents, and decided to pick up where those cultures left off and use the exact same lore and mythology that they were using previously that Noah's family wouldn't have even known about, somehow.
Yeah,
This is what I
the
like to
chances
call
are astronomical.
yeah, it's like this is what I like to call chasing zebras. So if you hear hoofbeats, you don't think zebras, you think horses. So the more parsimonious explanation is that because in ancient times and even still today, the majority of your mega metropolises are going to be centered around some body of water, and those have a tendency to flood when it rains really hard, and it rains all the time. It was raining yesterday where I'm at. Hell, back in 2017, the entire city of Houston was underwater. So
I
it's
mean,
it's not
Katrina,
uncommon.
the tsunami of 2004,
And
obviously
New Orleans
islands
has
of
been
all
underwater twice now.
Yeah.
obviously islands will have flood myths. Yeah, there's been a lot
Mm.
of it's kind of disturbing the amount of mental gymnastics that go into
15
trying to make
people died
everything
last
fit,
week in the
but
Kentucky floods.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
flooding is a very common phenomenon, especially when you consider that, like back in those ancient times, all of the major cities would have been near a large body of water, some sort of river or lake, or even a gulf, or even the ocean shoreline. And yeah, those have a tendency to flood. We see that happen all the time. There are a lot of local major floods that happen all around the world. And that's obviously a more parsimonious explanation than the entire planet was covered
I
in water.
know. But apologetics is just desperately trying to find a way where it's not completely insane and totally irrational, and they can't. But if it's a lot of just trying very hard and not looking too close, and kind of
Well, you got to remember
explanations.
also that these events are going to be very impressive to people when suddenly everything is underwater, your whole community is underwater, whatever. These are dramatic events, and they're going to remain in the folklore for a while, and
Fair
they
enough.
will be embellished and exaggerated. And there's only one way to exaggerate. I mean, ultimately, exaggerate a flood. Of course, it covers the whole world, right? So
Mhm.
everybody's going to come up with it with the same exaggeration. How
Mhm.
deep was it? Well, covered everything. What is everything? Everything.
Everything. What are you talking about?
Also, in
It's actually
geology, their geologists first started looking to validate a worldwide flood, and they did not find a worldwide flood layer in the same strata anywhere.
No.
So, and that kind of, they weren't looking to debunk it; they were looking to validate it, and that was the beginning of a lot of people losing a literal interpretation. Some people maybe they never did because they're like, "What? All
Yeah.
these animals on a
Someone in
boat, But
someone in the chat just pointed out that like 500 people were killed in the floods in Pakistan last week.
Uh, um, yeah, that's
So
unfortunate.
let's jump into it.
let's do it. Okay. So
Oh, one other thing. I've got somebody in here named Tiktaalik. Tiktaalik, introduce yourself, please. Or not. No pressure.
it looks like his name is Tiktulik.
Okay. All right. Well, go ahead.
What
King
verse do you want
Xerxes.
me to read to? You want me to start at we start at 1 and read to 5?
Yeah. That sounds
All
good.
right. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and all the domestic animals that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of heavens were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters gradually receded from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the waters had abated. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains appeared. So somehow God got the boat on top of Mount Ararat before it was not underwater.
Yeah, I should have jumped in earlier than that because I already had so many things to talk about. The springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed. Neither of these things exist. There is no firmament. The firmament does not have windows because there is no firmament to have windows in it. There are no floodgates in the ocean either. Creationists will talk about all manner of springs, but nothing like this. Nothing like what the Bible describes.
Yeah, and it's always important to keep in mind the ancient cosmic geography of the time. Like they would have
Mhm.
thought that it was a flat Earth and there was dome, and in order for it to rain so much, things spring from the deep and from the top, and I guess they just used the windows of heaven kind of imagery, but that was the standard worldview of the time.
Actually, that reminds me of earlier when we were talking about myths that got absorbed in. If you try and bring up China and how young Earth creationist flood timeline, China just goes right through it, having civilization. They'll try and work in a myth where a warrior stabbed a spear into the sky and, drown everyone with a huge flood that way. Because that's
I like that story. That's the one about Nu Kwa, the Naga goddess. So this guy gets really upset, throws a tizzy, and throws his spear into the firmament, punches a hole in the sky, and then all the water above the sky comes in and floods everything. And then the Naga goddess, who, by the way, is gigantic, she's a Godzilla-sized Naga goddess, she comes slithering in and has to clean up the flood. And curiously, she also created the first people out of clay figurines that she then magically enchanted to bring to life.
People do love their clay figurines.
I think the reason is that people were sitting around making things out of mud and say, hey, wouldn't it be neat if we could bring these to life? And then so they make up a story about somebody bringing something to life, and then they realize, well, hey, if somebody could bring these things to life and then they would be people, how do we know that we're not those people?
Don't some of the tombs of Chinese emperors have entire armies of tiny clay figurines to take into the afterlife? Yep. Like, it's clay is, we create things and we see things.
We are our own meter stick for first measuring the world.
Looking beyond that.
What? Okay, that wasn't just me. Okay, I got kind of freaked out. Thought my computer was crashing.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I was wondering why Lilith got electrocuted.
Apologies.
Hello?
Apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Tiktaalik?
Can everyone hear me?
Is my audio okay?
Yes, I hear you, Lilith.
Yes.
I hear you, Tiktaalik. Well, I heard Tiktaalik.
Good.
Good.
And then,
okay.
And then
I don't know where you lost me.
Tiktaalik, try one more time.
Technical difficulties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, never mind. We'll have him join in
Okay,
later.
I'm talking.
We're professional streamers.
Okay.
Tiktaalik, are you with us? Okay, maybe not. He just disappeared off the list. All right, King Xerxes.
Should anyone invoke Kent Hovind and say that with evolution everything is supposed to get better? Well,
we could mention the 16 different sightings on different mountains that are supposed to be Noah's Ark on the Mount of Ararat, but that would be a while. So let's just.
The one I usually hear is the guy who found Noah's Ark on Ararat and then was selling nails or rivets. Ron Wyatt, who claimed to have found that. And Ron Wyatt also coincidentally claimed to have found the exact cross that Jesus was crucified on.
And for God's sake.
Yeah, and where it was located, and directly beneath the cross, he also found an underground room where blood from the cross had leaked into that underground room. So he collected that blood. We'll talk more about that in a moment. And then while he was in that room, he also stumbled across the Ark of the Covenant directly beneath Jesus's cross. Then two guys who he apparently mistook for angels came in and told him that he should get out of there because he's not supposed to be in this room. And so he described them as angels trying to stop him from revealing the Ark of the Covenant. So he took the blood that he got of what he said was Jesus's blood, which, by the way, he scraped off the wall with a bottle cap because he's a professional. And he brought that back to his personal microscope, put the blood under the microscope, and saw that it had become reanimated, that he had Jesus's living blood.
Yeah, not only that, he had it tested in his local hospital, who confirmed that the blood was alive. But my favorite story of Ron Wyatt is still that he brought back a piece of wood from the ark that he got from someone who lived close by. And this guy later went on U.S. national TV claiming that he was an atheist. He had made it from a railroad tie and he aged it with coffee, among other things. That's
better than that. Ron Wyatt hosted an expedition to Ararat.
Now it should work.
He took a number of creationists with him, and they left the expedition in disgust when they realized he had misled them. What they were describing as an ark is a mound of dirt that is vaguely canoe-shaped because of the way snow melts and flows around. You know, if you have like a rocky obstruction or something, the snow will flow around it, and it carves a vague canoe shape out of the dirt.
Yeah, it's a landslide.
This reminds me of the early work of William Albright. So he basically started the field of archaeology. Sorry, biblical archaeology. I need to not archaeology. Oh my God! Started the field of biblical archaeology, and it was a good endeavor, like to actually like go out and see like, oh, let's actually check some of this stuff. Let's do that. Like, great, good for you. But he was so convinced that he would be finding the right things in the right places that when they would discover something, he would just align it with something in the Bible. There was no like good peer review process. There was no like checking these things. He just kind of said that fits in with this, therefore it's that.
It's a confirmation.
Yeah.
You know, I was speaking to a friend recently who was trying to understand, like, you're not religious anymore. Why did you do a Bible study? And I said, people need to understand, like, there's what the thing actually says, which is a lot of what we appreciate from you, Lawrence. But there's also
know thy enemy.
There's also what people think it says, and this entire background of dogma and reasoning that's affecting the real world. And the best description I've ever figured out for apologists and that kind of evangelical theologian and how they think is listening to fanboys. Like, if you've ever heard a DC fanboy and a Marvel fanboy arguing with something over each other, or from the same universe, they're arguing, Superman would never do that. Well, he did do that in the New 52. Well, that wasn't normal circumstances. It doesn't matter. It was still canon. But he would never do that. But he did do that. But that was special circumstances. That's the type of thought process entirely that goes on here of, I have a schematic, I'm trying to fit it in, I will argue that in however it must be.
Okay, but Lilith, that was special circumstances.
Okay, so I've got a couple of chats to read. Let's see. Tiktaalik was letting us know that he had problems with his mic. Some people in the chat wanted to say that it sounded like Lilith had bloopered herself. She starts speaking, then goes, and then we have a gift of $10 from Robert Lawrence. Thank you very much for that. And then another one to read is Tyrone Hogan for, it says $10. Maybe that means Australian. Says, hey, R and Rod, just wanted to thank you for bringing me to the actual truth and saving me from a mindless life of dogma. I truly do regard you as one of my heroes. Thank you from way down in Australia. Thank you very, very much for that, Tyrone Hogan. And then we have a super chat.
Before we continue.
What's that?
Sorry, I just wanted to check my mic. Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes, but it's chopping out in a bit. Go ahead.
Okay,
And
if
say
I
what you
can't
wanted
solve
to say.
it, I just go away. No, if I can't solve my mic, I just go away. I never had this issue. So I'll
Okay,
check
well,
what's
I
going
mean, I can hear what you're saying. It's a little choppy, but if you want to say something, go ahead.
on. No, continue this.
Okay.
I'll try to fix it.
All right. So moving on. King Xerxes.
Ah, yes. Okay, so we will start at verse 6. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made and sent out the raven, and it went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth.
Hold
Then
on.
he sent out the
Hold
dove.
on. Hold on. Hold on. After 40 days, Noah opened a window. Weren't previous instructions on the construction of the ark that you could only have one window?
Yeah, so I
that's
guess
what it
you would
says.
open that one window, yeah.
At the end of 40
So
days, Noah
he
opened
kept
the
that
window of
closed
the
for
ark.
40 days.
Hey, you don't
The
want any of
one
that
window.
rain to get in, do you?
I hope he didn't light a match.
Boy, it must have stunk in that.
Boom.
So I have this vision of the one opening in the ark, and you've got the 8 people living on the ark, with mad speed and snow shovels, hurling dung out that window as fast as they can do it.
Well,
But now I
technically,
find
God only ordered one window. He didn't say they weren't allowed to have more. So maybe it was a case of easier to get forgiveness than permission.
well, he said have one window. But anyway,
By the second day, they will be making clothes.
and everyone died of methane poisoning on the first day.
I like how the general creationist response to these sorts of problems is to just say that God magicked it away somehow, which always amused me, because if God is capable of these sorts of dramatic violations of the laws of nature, why couldn't he have just snapped his fingers and gotten rid of all the people that he didn't want to be alive? Why go through the hassle of a flood and then hiding the evidence for it and then like pigeonholing all of the laws of physics just so that it'll work?
What if God was like a regular person and tried to use reason?
Yeah.
Calm down. Calm down.
What if he did
We
things
don't
the
like to hear
smart
those
way?
things here.
Then he sent
If
out
I
the
were
dove
God, I
from
would
him.
just if these people had pissed me off, I would like show up, appear and
Smite.
reprimand them and send them on the right path. I'd probably do that. Or since I blinked everything into existence with a snap of my fingers or a wiggle of my nose anyway, I would just snap my fingers or wiggle my nose or nod again and and have them corrected or
He couldn't find his infinity gauntlet.
Proposal for an answer. Maybe,
Okay.
just maybe, God is a drama queen.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd say it's accurate. Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I really, it seems a well-supported proposition.
Yeah.
Okay, King Xerxes, continue.
Alrighty.
And remember,
then
this
he
is the
sent-
Bible, Hep. Let's rub some funk on it. Let's get a little drama. God is a drama queen. Yeah.
Then he sent out the dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set its foot, and it returned to him to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took it and brought it into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent out the dove from the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days and sent out the dove, and it did not return to him any more. In the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from the earth, and Noah, removing the covering of the ark, and looked and saw the face of the ground was drying.
So I just want to point out one thing. So where it says the 601st year there, the Septuagint, the Greek translation, and here it is. Here's my Greek Septuagint right here, as you can see. I don't know how well you see, but it's there.
He just showed it. Lawrence just showed everybody his Septuagint.
Yeah, you know what? This is a pretty big Septuagint. So
Now, no one likes a braggart.
so in the Greek version, it actually adds in the life of Noah. So in the 601st year, in the life of Noah. So it's unclear which is the original reading. I would probably say that the one without in the life of Noah is the original reading, and in the life of Noah is in addition for it's like a gloss for like understanding when they were translating this.
My
Uh,
NIV does say the first month of Noah's 601st year.
yeah.
So that could indeed be gloss. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's probably a gloss. That's
Mhm.
my best guess. Although Alter says that it's unclear, but I would think it's a gloss. But that is in the Greek version. So
We have another
Okay,
a
before
post
we-
from Mitch
oh, sorry.
Mills.
Go ahead.
$5 says, "Gotta support the good fight. As a former madman, I hope y'all realize how much you all help." Thank you very much again for that.
So I wanted to add here, I'm like the other, I was an old earth creationist, but maybe I took this literally, I don't know, back then. So where'd the raven go? And I remember a sermon about this, that the raven can fly for a longer period, and doves are roosting birds, and that's why they came back to roost. And that was some kind of like, I don't know if it was proof of Noah's genius or what, but why send the raven out? Oh, I should have sent a dove. Where'd the raven go?
Well,
So these people know about what happens when you salt the earth. They know how germination works. I mean, these people did farming, right? So what would happen to an olive leaf or an olive seed inundated with all this water for a year?
it would grow Kalamata olives, obviously.
The entire ocean would be a giant martini.
And Greek food was born.
There you go.
Our hero.
Okay. In the second month of the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Go out of the ark and find you and your wife, and your sons and your sons' wives with you. Bring
Hold
out
on,
with
hold
you."
on, hold on. God had to tell them to come out of the ark. You've been in there for a year. You're on land. The door is open. Get the fuck out.
Is that like those kids that won't leave home?
Bring out
ahead.
with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may abound on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth, which was a barren wasteland at this point.
And
So-
should we discuss how Noah kept feeding all these animals and how he kept them watered? Because I argue with creationists. I mean, how much fresh water would he have to have brought on board? And they insist none. They just lower buckets over the side. But the kind of tumult that they're talking about would have meant that would have been, no matter how much water was involved, it wouldn't have been drinkable. And all the food.
Hypothetically,
So they
Yes.
so the usual Adventist response to this is that pre-flood peoples were super technologically advanced, like gene editing and also sci-fi stuff. So maybe he had a filter.
have a filter.
I've also heard
And that's
that
taken from Ed White.
Yeah, I also heard an apologetic excuse that what Noah's Ark was really just a floating cryogenics lab, and that he had embryos of all these animals. Not understanding that even if you have the embryo, you have to have something for the embryo to develop in, which means you still have to have the animal.
That was literally a cartoon after Earth, which is fine, but not a really good explanation as to why you would be building something out of wood and also have a cryogenics lab. Sure. This is totally realistic in every way. And I did actually see a meme, because you could hypothetically imagine that he harvested rainwater in some way, at least during the initial deluge. Not that that would have been particularly safe or feasible. But I saw a meme recently that showed Noah's Ark and all the dead bodies, and then someone added basically a net to it, and intimating that perhaps Noah fed the carnivores by harvesting the bodies from God's wonderful deluge of love, which would have been more convenient than carrying on several thousand pounds of meat in addition to the
You
living
want to
animals.
fish? You want to fish up a carcass that's
Meat?
been floating
No.
on the ocean?
No, I do
150
not.
days on the water.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that
this
that
is the
stuff gets
least
nasty
bad
after.
explanation. It's still complete insanity, but it's waste not, want not. I don't know.
And then once you let everybody out, once you let all these animals out, right? What happens when the lions say, "Okay, now I'm going to eat,"
Mhm.
and you've got 2 gazelles and you've got 2 lions, and suddenly now you have no gazelles.
Maybe that's what happened to all the extinct animals.
There you go, including all the extinct carnivores.
Speaking of lions, I can't find
Oh.
the comment, but someone said, did he also store the embryos of the 2 gay lions you always see in Noah's Ark toys? Because it's like whenever they have the 2 lions in line, they both have manes, you know?
There's a picture of that that's gone a little viral, and it's awesome.
Yeah, somebody had just commented in the chat that the lions ate the dinosaurs.
Obviously, I mean, lion versus T-Rex. Who are you gonna bet on?
Wow,
Yeah.
lions are way scarier than I thought. Wow, that is incredible.
All right, King
That's
Xerxes,
what taught in my church, that the dinosaurs, because they were bigger and had more meat.
Yeah, we didn't catch all of that because of the microphone issue. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah,
got
sorry.
because of all the meat, but
Was this a reference to the idea in one of the Chick comics explained where humans hunted the dinosaurs to extinction because it got a lot of
yes,
steaks
yes,
and chops? Yeah.
specifically Noah's family.
let me see if I get this right. With modern technology, Australia could not eradicate an emu,
Mm-hmm.
population of emus, but Stone Age people could wipe out all the dinosaurs and Brontotherium and all those other things by
Obviously.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, carnivorous animals this size of a building.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
Arn, I have-
emus and stuff were descendant of raptors, and raptors were these 8-foot tall killing machines, and they were wicked fast. You think a cheetah's fast? These things had the body structure to run close to 100 miles an hour.
Mhm.
I think that's a bit much. I don't think they were. I mean, I had an emu as a pet, and they are blindingly fast. But the raptors that you're talking about, like Deinonychus and Utahraptor and such, they would not have been 100 miles an hour.
Perhaps
have
that's
done-
hyperbolic.
Perhaps
could have
100
done
kilometers
40.
an hour.
They could have done 35 or 40 pretty easily.
Yeah, they're little speed demons. Just imagine an emu with functioning claws and razor sharp teeth.
Yep, there you go.
Not something I'd want to keep as a pet. I mean, those things are aggressive enough as it is. So Noah went out with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, and every animal, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out of the ark by families. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took every clean animal and every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And then the Lord smelled the pleasing odor, burning flesh. The Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of humankind, for the inclination of the human heart is evil from youth. Nor will I ever again destroy every living creature as I have done. And long
Okay,
as the
so-
earth is yours.
Yeah, I did. After Aaron says whatever he needs to say, I'll
No, you
comment.
go ahead. Go ahead. Lawrence.
I guess my only comment was really about the anthropomorphism of God here.
Mhm.
So we have gotten like hints of that throughout, and in some ways it's gonna go on even further in later books. But for this one specifically, I wanted to note it because while he's smelling the odor, and he really loves that smell of burning meat. What's interesting is that in the Mesopotamian traditions, the gods actually come down and eat the food, which is interesting. But either way, God enjoys this fragrance. There was one translator, one sole translator, who I'm not sure if it's at this point or if it's at a different point where he's talking about fragrances, but he, for some reason, he translates it to be God's dick. There's this one sole translator who did that. Nobody really accepts that translation, but and like I said, I don't remember if it's for this specific verse or a different one that also anthropomorphizes God in light of smelling a fragrant odor. But that was, I'll have to go back and check. But that one translator makes it seem like they're talking about God's dick, which is hilarious to me. But
God's
either
dick
way,
in what
Like
way?
God
What
got
was
a
he doing?
boner
Yeah.
when
like
he
his-
was in flesh?
his
What?
if I remember this properly, his I think it was like about his presence in the temple. And that was because that's where they would have been doing a whole bunch of sacrifices.
They'd be like, God, is that your staff? Or are you just happy to see us?
God, the reference to the temple is because God is pitching a tent.
Oh. So are we saying that barbecue gives God a boner?
Yeah, you know what? Same.
Okay, so here there's a number of problems with this. Okay, first of all, we have to understand that the lions now, because the creationist argument that the dinosaurs were all on the ark, right? And that they couldn't have died on the ark and then been fed to the other animals because they were brought on the ark so that they would survive, so they would be preserved. So how is it that 90% of everything died as soon as it got off the boat? And
We
that's
ate them.
yeah, and so I mean, otherwise, if you're talking about the animals that are currently alive that the people knew about at the time when they wrote the stories, then they would have had to think that the lions didn't eat a damn thing until those gazelles and everything else managed to reproduce further young. So that's also confusing. But then, if Noah's supposed to bring all these things up so we could keep them alive, why does he sacrifice some of them as soon as they get off the boat?
Well, those were the clean animals, of which he was to take 7 pairs of each. Even though
Doesn't it begin to sound like he's got more livestock on this boat than he has wild animals?
Probably,
Yeah.
yes.
Especially when
I
he
mean-
gets into the descriptions of birds and such. He's got an aviary on there, but they're mostly pets.
One thing that kind of irritates me is that like God didn't take this golden opportunity to get rid of some of the more ecologically obsolete and useless animals that offer nothing and are usually either parasitic or just too stupid to live. Like, why preserve the koala bear? What is the point of the koala? It is the dumbest
and
animal
look at-
I've ever seen in my life.
Try
about the
imagine
lions?
watching a koala swim back to Australia after this, from
They obviously rode in the kangaroo's pouches. I don't know what's so difficult about this.
Dude, I mean, like, you guys got to research koalas. Like these animals are genuinely the dumbest animals on the planet.
Yes.
I'm not kidding you. They're just I
Smooth brain.
put in some research to koalas, and they really are just absolutely brain dead.
Yeah, they have smooth brains for all of mammals. They have they don't have the wrinkles that give us the accentuated intelligence. So yeah, they're about as dumb as a mammal can get. And remember also you have the 3-toed sloths and other things that are somehow going from Turkey back to South America in slow motion.
And that actually
They
brings up
got
an
back
interesting
right around
thing.
the same time that the Spanish conquistadors got there.
Well, that actually brings up an interesting thing because it's very obvious if you look at tectonic plates that South America and Africa fit together like two puzzle pieces. And I have heard it intimated that when the fountains of the deep broke open, meaning huge underwater vents or, residual pockets of water just burst out, that this may have been when the split occurred, which meant that whatever had come from there, how the hell was it supposed to get back?
Oh no, we're going to get to that because that's the creationist apologetic. There comes from the Tower of Babel when it says the lands were divided.
Oh right!
Wow, that's horrible. That is so
It's
bad.
horrible.
That is so. Oh my.
Well, if you think that's bad, Godspeed in the comments here says that God gave us the AR-15 to kill the dinosaurs. Actually, that was the Remington bolt-action rifle. The AR-15 was given to us to periodically control the population of elementary schools.
Oh. Okay. Moving on. Read your last verse.
Arn, a quick,
and I'm dead now.
quick message.
Yeah.
So we have a problem with YouTube chat showing the super chats. We're working on fixing it. It's slightly fixed, but I've lost some of the super chats that are already in the live chat. And I also got
let me go.
a message from one of your patrons who had messaged you. He's a Hebrew speaker and he would like to join the panel. Do you want me to shoot him the link?
Yes.
Okay, will do.
All right. So let me catch up on these links. So Mitch Mills offered $5. Says, "Got to support the good fight." Okay, but you read that one. Okay, then Daniel Constantine for £17.99. If all is one, isn't Azazel God himself then? Thanks and keep it up. I am a little confused at that one. And then we have for Matt White, he says, ancient seafarers known to use non-migratory birds to find land beyond the horizon, hence the crow's nest. Okay. Then Tiktaalik mentions Noah's fried terror birds. Makes sense. Then a native atheist for $10. Thank you very much. Says thank you, Aaron. Neptune's Lagoon says the raven and the dove are in the constellations near the ark. It's from the Sumerian flood story. Same stars involved, etc. So is Jesus walking on water? I just did a video on it. Neptune's Lagoon. I should look that up. And then the dude for $4.99 says, I was a creationist as a teenager because my parents forced me to watch Canthoven 7 hours. I'm sorry. Now I watch you.
That should be considered child abuse.
Yeah. He says, now I watch you to help me cleanse myself of lies. Thank you very much, dude. And then Sean Alexander for $20. Thank you very much. Says, no man ever believes that the Bible means what it says. He's always convinced that it says what he means.
George
Bernard Shaw.
Yeah.
I've gotten a few good quotes from him. And then Clifton Manley says, you guys are taking the piss. All Australians sit around, preferably near a gum tree, given half the chance. Koalas are highly evolved Australians. Good day.
Good day, mate.
Good day. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm going to leave that. King Xerxes, we should have let you finish the closing.
Yeah.
poem.
There was only one verse left.
Yes.
Really quickly before I get to that, somebody mentioned in the comment section that koalas are so stupid that they don't even recognize eucalyptus leaves if they're not on the trees. And that's not even the worst of it. Eucalyptus leaves are poisonous to koalas, and that's their exclusive diet. As a matter of fact, they're so poisonous to koalas that the young ones cannot eat them. So instead, they eat the fecal matter of their mothers.
Yeah, someone else watched the same Z Frank video as I did, didn't you?
Anybody hears me?
Yes.
Aaron, can you explain that?
Wait.
In terms of evolution, because I don't get it.
Tomer, we hear you.
Hello. How are you doing, everybody?
Good.
It's all right. It's all right.
Koala's
So,
really
what did you
nice
want to
all
comment
about.
on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm a Hebrew speaker. I'm I'm from Israel, and what I want to say, it just came by surprise that a link has just been sent to me. I can help you with translating basically the Bible to Hebrew because from the original source, and yeah. Especially, I'm looking forward to Genesis 8 because there are a bunch of not Genesis 8, Genesis 10 because there are a bunch of Hebrew words there that the King James Bible butchers. So, yeah,
That doesn't surprise me.
Okay,
Yeah,
Lawrence, you've been replaced. You
it
can
butchers.
leave.
Hey,
butchers-
hey!
Hey!
I know Greek. I can help.
Yeah, and I know Hebrew, and I know that you're Jewish, but I'm also Jewish. I think ethnically Jewish, but yeah, two different worlds, I assume.
yeah,
Welcome,
definitely.
Tomer.
Yeah, hello.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
although I would
So
I
we are
would say
in
it's
Genesis. Oh, I have I've heard about the what is it? The one part in this chapter that spoke about God smelling the meat or something like that.
Yes,
What
the
was it?
smell of burning flesh from all the
Yeah.
offerings.
So I don't know if that's correct, but the sages, those who wrote the Talmud and the Mishnah, basically said that the Torah spoke in human tongue. Basically, God didn't really smell the meat. It's just the way that of the Torah to basically convey something to humans that can't really be conveyed in a real sense, I guess. So
that tracks with what I've read from the Talmud or any midrashic writings. That tracks. The authors there were so good at stretching.
yeah, they were very
all
good
of
at
them.
explaining stuff that didn't really fit. For example, there is the story of Elisha. I don't know if how you say it in English. Elisha,
Elijah
where
and
Well,
Elisha.
the thing is, there's Elijah and also Elisha. So I'm guessing
I'll say it
the
Elisha. I'll say it
the latter.
Elisha. That's the how it's pronounced. So that he is the prophet from Kings, and there is a story where there are a couple of children who basically curse Elisha because he's bald or something like that. And
Right.
what does Elisha do?
Calls down bears.
Yes, he calls down bears to kill them.
Bear
So the sages were like, that doesn't sound right. I mean, that's kind of brutal. And they basically said there were no bears, there was no forest. This was all a fable or something like that.
To
And
tell kids to respect the priests, right?
Well, he wasn't
I
even a
don't-
priest. He was
Prophet, whatever.
Yeah, he was a prophet. And also, I think that they say that the story of Job is basically a fable and it's not real. So, Behemoth.
yeah, Behemoth, Leviathan, all that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And I think that
Christians seem worse than Jews historically, generally, about having to take everything hyper literally, to a ridiculous
There's an
degree.
elephant.
I think part of it is probably that in early Jewish history and even in modern history, the Jews have dealt with a lot of shit as a group, and they were constantly kind of pushed to synchronize in their new communities. Like, for example, in the Babylonian exile, it did become a synchronistic religion because they were like, well, we want to keep our traditions, but we still have to live under the rule of Babylon. So they would the religion would become synchronous with Babylonian religion. It happened with the Assyrians. It happened with probably during the Maccabean revolt.
Zoroastrianism, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think the the kippah and tefillin stuff basically came from Zoroastrianism. I don't really
A
know.
lot of that certainly affected Jewish thought, if nothing else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um,
To the point where it's like when we're talking about those early Jews, I really can't say that it's Judaism at that point. It's just early Israelite or just Israelite religion,
mhm,
because it's just so markedly different than modern day Judaism.
mhm.
Yes.
Now, I'm turning this over in my mind to try and understand it, because we've been reading Genesis, and there's more than one reference to God enjoying the smell of offerings. So, are they saying that Genesis isn't literal and he didn't really smell like the smell of offerings? Because by the time you get to the New Testament, he's saying your offerings stink to me, and then he sacrifices his son as an offering instead, and no more offerings
Who's
for
also
me.
himself.
Mhm.
Like, how does this work? Is it non-literal because it keeps saying that he enjoys the smell of burning meat? Are the priests saying this to the people so they can get more meat? I don't know.
I know when I was a Christian, I would have considered that it was about the intention, the sacrifice of praise, the offering of a contrite heart, the Lord will
Is the
not
thought that
despise.
counts?
Yeah, kind of. The sincerity of the offering is the thing that God genuinely cares about, and I guess you could say smells. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just hypothesizing, but that sounds like what a theological person would say about that, and it's possible that there was a
Yeah, as
similar
I
line
also
of thought in
said,
the
what
Talmud.
how the sages basically dealt with stuff like that. Basically, the Torah spoke in human tongue, so
Mhm.
it's not really him smelling it. It's just conveying to the humans the conveying to human thought or emotions, but it's not really that he smelled things, because in Judaism you don't have like the manifestation of God,
Yeah.
or you don't. It's basically against the Jewish theology. So
I would think
I'm
that
gonna
the one
resist
thing.
that a little bit. God in the Old Testament is repeatedly referred to as just a dude. He has a physical incorporeation that he uses to communicate with Abraham. He wrestles with Jacob. He has human thoughts, emotions, goals, desires, so on and so forth. So, I mean,
It's
if you're
just
going
like
to make
what
the
we were
argument
just
that it's all
reading.
just analogous or some sort of metaphor, I mean, I think that's just cope, to be honest. It's just ad hoc cope.
It's a
Well,
later
I would-
apologetic.
Yeah. So I would say that the closest, because the thing is, within all of Jewish theology, if we take it all in as a whole, then the closest thing that we get to even considering the apologetics that have
Mhm.
been presented, the closest that you can get to a manifestation of God, considering those apologetics, would be the Shekinah, maybe, which is like God's presence, and it
Mhm.
doesn't appear too much. And I think there might be like a
basically,
couple.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking in it's Shechina, Shekinah,
Sorry, how do you say it?
Shekinah?
Shechina. Is that
Shekinah.
how?
Okay, sorry, hold on. I'm gonna try to get it. Shekinah.
Shekhinah. I think it's basically in Hebrew Shekhinah, or something like that.
Shekinah.
Basically the
Shekinah.
I'm gonna have to work on my pronunciation there.
Yeah, the Hebrews had some severe allergy problems. Let's.
well, thank you. By your logic, I guess that also the Dutch also have allergies.
No, the
Yeah.
Dutch
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
can't talk. They're just too drunk all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So the Shekhinah is basically the manifestation of God in the world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So maybe
And it shows up a lot more in apocryphal and pseudepigraphal literature than anything. Like it's
I would
I have
point
a
out.
follow question here. Okay,
Mhm.
if God doesn't really like the smell of burning meat, is that, you're saying the sages said this? Does every sect of Judaism today no longer do any sacrifices? Like, I think there's a sacrifice commanded of women
I
when you're on your
think
period to sacrifice a
I
bird.
I think sacrifice a bird is something that happens in Yom Kippur. I'm coming from a secular place, so I'm not
Mhm.
coming from a religious feel it, but I've seen like this where they spin around their heads a chicken. It's called a caparot, and I don't really know why. But I know that there
I
are
do.
Because it
fringe-
looks hilarious.
No, I do. So
Yeah,
this
I think it's a sin offering.
this is to transfer any diseases or bad demons to the chicken. And then the fun part of that is
Yeah,
that
that sounds-
they
that- yeah, that
after
sounds right.
after the
That
ritual
sounds
they donate the chicken to the poor people to eat it.
However,
Wait.
I will concede. However, I will concede that there are fringe movements in Judaism that actually like try to go to the like the old city in Jerusalem and sacrificing goats. There were a couple of there were a couple of examples of
Those
like,
are the Samaritans, right?
What?
The Samaritans?
No, not the Samaritans. Jews, basically, very hardcore Jews. Let's say this. There was like a movement. There was a very fringe movement here that basically said, "Get your goats and go sacrifice them in here." And I remember that there was a family with kids that there was a picture of them. And they had a goat inside their car, and you're like, "Yeah, we're going to sacrifice it in the temple," or I don't know. The
There's no
how
temple.
do you
One
say
big
this?
barbecue.
Right. How do you say
So
it
I'm
in-
curious about this chicken that gets infested with demons.
And then you give it to the
Because
poor.
My wife
Temple
and I
Mount,
have
sorry.
visited all of the hot chicken places in Dallas, and I'm curious about these demonic chickens. Would that be similar to, similar to like a Nashville hot chicken? Is it going to be like scorpion pepper if you got demons all full of it?
I mean, I don't know. It's
I don't know.
do
And
they
then-
and then
pour,
you have a
their
demonic
extra
chicken.
spicy?
You make this you infiltrate or you infuse this chicken with demons and then give it to the poor people.
mean-
Demons.
Aaron, in all
I
honesty,
mean, it's an
that
offering in the old way, but they don't have an altar, so you take it to a kosher butcher and then it's donated. Which, I mean, I'm glad that they're feeding the poor, but the poor chicken having to, helicopter. Although I did think I was thinking, Lawrence, earlier when we talked about God being described as having a physical body, because we've discussed how before Zoroastrianism and the Persian religion definitely affected Jewish thought, but before that there was polytheism, and El is literally a Canaanite god. He's equivalent of Zeus with wives and kids and the head of a pantheon, and there are statues of him. And he looks like a dude, although his symbol is the bull, which will become important later. But it's like he is a dude. He is a god like Zeus or Odin or any of the others. So I don't know how literal those descriptions are intended, certainly not literal by modern Jews. But at the time, God was just like there was definitely earlier concepts in Judaism of God as just superpowered dude who would smite you with lightning or whatever.
And
Yeah, we got to remember also that God is making kind of an apology. He says, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood and all of that." And so he made people the way they are. He did something that did not solve the problem.
Nope.
Mr. Omniscient, the one who sees the future and is infallible, tried to eradicate this evil and then failed to eradicate the evil, admitted that he failed, and says he's not going to try that solution again.
As Ingersoll said, God has nothing to teach me about how to love my children if he had to drown his own.
Yeah.
It's interesting how this kind of all ended up. So we consider how he's never going to flood the earth again, right? What's kind of funny is that in later generations they would be like, well, no, he's not going to flood the earth again. He said he wouldn't, but he will burn it with fire. So,
God loves the
Yeah.
loophole.
so he's not going to flood it again.
God loves the
Oh, no.
loophole. What can I say?
Or is he
He's
going
going
to
to
send the
poison
angel
all-
of death and strike all the firstborn?
I don't
Regarding
think
the-
it was the angel of death. I think it was God. basically.
Regarding the
That-
demon hot chicken, so somebody in the comments just brought up the word poultrygeist.
Let's give it to the poor.
Someone also said,
Oh.
"What happened if you have them lay eggs? Do you get deviled eggs?" And just when they typed that, someone walked in the room here and gave me deviled eggs. So there's some missions in the side chat.
That's perfect.
Well, yeah. After this, we're gonna have to go have some demon hot chicken. Whoever serves that. All right. Are we ready to move on to chapter 9?
Just a second.
Ooh, yes.
Lilith was referring to El, and it seems like El survives in the Bible, or at least in Hebrew tradition, because
Yes.
the names of God are El Adonai,
Yes,
El
yes, yes.
Shaddai,
Yes,
El
Elohim,
basically,
Elohim.
yeah.
El Elroy.
There is a famous there is like a famous prayer called El Malach Hamim, basically translated to God is full of mercy, when you basically say a kaddish to a dead person, or you see this in Holocaust remembrances. So El is it's another name for God. There are many names for God. There is also Hakadosh Baruch Hu, which is particularly which is basically the Holy Ones, bless he be, in a translation, which is very which is common with Haredi, which is basically ultra Orthodox of Judaism. There's also, I don't know if Kodesh HaKodashim, which is holiest of holy, but Hashem, which is the name, Adonai, the Lord, and what else? I don't know.
Elohim is confusing, right? Doesn't it mean the host?
It can mean gods in the plural, depending on when it's written.
Yeah,
and
there
how
is
it's being
Eloha.
used.
Yeah,
there is
Elohim
Eloha, and yeah.
I would like to say there's as I understand it, and the God concept of Judaism and later Christianity, which obviously is distinct but spawned from it, has picked up a lot of junk from different places all over the years. But as I understand it, at the base, when they wrote and put together the Tanakh and the 5 books of Moses, when they came back, they had taken there were at least 2 primary gods, Yahweh in the south and El in the north, in Israel. That were then blended, but then a lot of other conceptual stuff got picked up over time too. So you have these 2 distinct entities that were mashed, but then also, conceptualization and theology picked up a lot of other
I think
stuff.
there was also a regional Yahweh. There is the Yehovah Teiman, which is regional to the south, and Yehovah Shomron, which is regional to the north of Judea. I don't know what it's called. I know that there is this type of like regional god. It has a name. I don't know if
nobody entirely knows, because the vowels were never written down. And it's very interesting if you look at the work of I often quote the work of Israel Finkelstein and Neil Asher Silberman, and you can read their book, but you can also just look at the Nova documentary and the Bible's Buried Secrets. And in it, they talk about what the Israelites called Moab, that region, and how there was a town which might very well have been named Yahoo, literally. But after that god, again, vowels were not written down. So they're like, these are your options. You have so many options. But either way, that southern god was the patron god of Judah, the war god that the people, that then the priests were very supremacist about. And then when Israel and Judah were folded together after the exile and everything else, they retconned the Canaanite god El together with this god. And that's why you end up with texts with different, varying texts with different names for God, but we're pretending it's all one. And yet there are some cases and some stories, which I will point out when we get to them, some of them stand out quite strongly, where it's very clear they're talking about 2 different gods. And it's very awkward until you know that. You're like, none of this makes any sense. And then you're like, oh, they were originally 2 gods. Oh, everything is clear now. It's very convoluted in the amount of, a lot of it is cope. As you said, Xerxes, a lot of theology is cope.
Yeah, I
I'm gonna
mean,
have
like if
to
you were to
read some
jump
of
into a
these.
time machine and go back in time and talk to any of these people that conjured these stories up, somehow able to bridge the communication gap, these people are not going to be believing in some sort of esoteric philosophical deity like most modern apologists do. It's a
No,
dude.
no.
They believe in a physical God who has the capacity to disembody himself and transfer forms. But regardless, this is a guy. He has all the same features as people, i.e., he created
I
man in his image. We look like God.
if I'm not mistaken, I think that in the book of Daniel, God is described as being with a white beard. I don't
Yeah,
really. I don't.
he is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
same
you.
in Revelation. The Jesus coming back is white as snow and all dramatic
Yeah,
And
and
also sitting in a chair and stuff like that.
Yeah, we will
Eat
get to
something?
where it says that God walks, talks, eats, sits, turns his head, waves his hand, shows his backside, and cheats at wrestling.
Then God is an ape. If you're made in his image, God is an ape.
Yeah, there's a lot of contradictions here, like where God says that that no one can see God, no one has seen God, and it says that after describing people who have seen God face to
like the
face.
70 elders of Israel. But does this
It-
mean if God is an ape, does
Exactly.
this mean God has nipples?
Yes, yes. So we will get there, and this reminds me of a question. When I was doing the Quran lessons, I would have to read the Quran. I'd have to read multiple translations. I would have to write my whole piece on it. To go over the different translations of it to make sure I understood it, and then have my panel read that to then describe to me what I got right or wrong. But I don't have to do that with the Bible, so I don't have to do it every other week like I did with the Quran. And I know Lawrence does his Bible lessons every week, right, Lawrence? Right.
Yeah, yeah, every week.
How do you guys feel about, like, maybe not always, but like doing just every week for a while?
I love the idea.
I'm
It's going to
fine.
take us
I'm
forever
fine with that.
otherwise.
Well, good.
This is what I can say about that. I may not be able to participate every
I'm fine
week,
with that.
but if we do it every 2 weeks, it'll be the year 2033 before we get to the New Testament.
Yeah,
That was my
it'll take
other
a while.
thought.
So on my show, we've been doing the show for 5 years now, and we read 3 or 4 chapters each show, and we're in acts right now.
Wow.
So it's quite the read.
We're going to have to
Okay.
power through some stuff.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Numbers
to
is a
be
page
fair,
turner.
there are
Oh,
a few
yeah.
books. There are a few books that we may be able to skip, given the complete lack of content in them. Books like Nehemiah and Nahum.
Yeah.
There's nothing in those books.
The thing is,
We have to cover Amos.
I would disagree on Nehemiah because it kind of goes hand in hand with Ezra.
Fair enough.
Yes, they
Yeah, I'm not
sometimes
interested.
these books are combined as of
Yeah.
Nehemiah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not interested in skipping anything either. Even the redundant, stupid stuff. I just want to get it all through.
Have
But
you
I
read
understand when we've
Numbers?
got
Yes.
we've got a half a dozen people commenting on these. It is taking a little bit longer.
Right. But like I said, I mean, if we do it every weekend, I cannot guarantee that I'll be available every weekend, but I'll try to come.
Well,
as frequently
I
as
can't be
can.
here every week myself, but I want to strive to do as much as possible every week.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
The other thing we could do, I don't know if this is too time consuming, but you could have 2 separate shows, right? Blasphemers, Bible, Old Testament, and New Testament, and that way they can run sort of at the same time. You just have one on a different day.
See, what I would say is that because so much of the New Testament, in fact, almost all of it is based on Old Testament stuff. So if you go into the New Testament blind, there's a whole lot of stuff that you're going to miss, a whole lot of points that you're just not going to be able to hit because you haven't gotten there yet in the Old Testament.
Yeah, I'm with that. All right,
that's
King
fair.
Xerxes, you ready to read the next passage?
Yeah, so the last verse that we never got to is, and as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So now we can progress to Genesis chapter 9, verse 1, the covenant with Noah. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you shall rest on every animal of the earth and on every bird of the air and on everything that creeps on the ground. And on all the fish of the sea into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And just as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything.
Okay,
Only
let's bear that in mind. So the Bible doesn't contradict itself, right? And God is timeless. His message is unchanging, and He gives you everything. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you.
oink, oink.
So I have
Previously,
a
we had
feeling
to be
he's going to contradict
vegetarian.
that later.
Yeah.
Never, Aaron. Whatever would give you that idea?
I got a little foreshadowing that's going to be the case.
Only you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. For your own lifeblood I will surely require a reckoning. From every animal I will require, and from human beings, each one for the blood of another, I will require a reckoning for human life. Now, I will say that some people translate this to mean human sacrifice.
Yeah, there's a couple of places that I read human sacrifice into this.
It's not hard to get.
Yeah.
You can read it other ways. It's not incontrovertible, but it requires very little finagling to get there.
Well, in the
Yeah.
future will be in Exodus 34. I mean, there's a passage in Exodus 34 which seems to be explicitly talking about human sacrifice in the first point.
Yep, there is indeed, and then there in Leviticus and Ezekiel, they're also backing that up. But we'll get there. We do too much foreshadowing here.
Who's playing the piano?
I hear music.
Yeah.
Sorry. My God.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, I'm going to read the next line. Whoever sheds human blood by humans shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind.
Different take from what he did with Cain, but sure.
Yeah. Why did Cain just get banishment? Is God unchanging? Is his message consistent or not?
I don't know. Maybe Abel was a dick and God thought it was like partially justified homicide. I don't know.
Yeah, really hard to say there.
Yeah, I mean, if you notice, there's no theme of guilt really in the
Nope.
story. It's not. That doesn't
Lot
never
of
says
blood
that what
magic.
Cain did was wrong. And to be fair, the Ten Commandments hadn't been handed down yet. Where in Genesis does it say that God told them not to kill each other?
But Cain already knew. Cain already knew that he had to lie to cover up the crime that he had done, even though he didn't know it was a crime.
And he was afraid that people would kill him for killing someone. So apparently there was already moral accountability in society with, however many people were born at that point. But sure, we needed the 10 Commandments to tell us not to.
And there were
murder
other
each other.
people to kill him, even
I
though.
know. Where did they come from? Did Adam and Eve produce all these other people to kill him that we don't know about?
Yeah,
Well,
we did talk about
centuries
that.
of fertility. Menopause did not exactly come at 50, I'm assuming.
Just remember, the Bible has no contradictions as long as you ignore all the contradictions.
Of course.
All right, I have to read a couple more of these chats because they're stacking up. So, Kicker White Lion for 50 Czechoslovakian, whatever they are. I apologize. I can't remember the currency in Czech. It says the sloths are actually trying to get to the southern point of Chile. They just haven't gotten there
It's Czech
yet.
corona.
Because they're so slow.
I just want to point out it's Czech corona.
Got it. I figured it would be Corona because most things over there are. All right. So Tesla Ranger says koala brains only account for about 0.2% of their body weight, one of the smallest ratios of any marsupial. For humans, the brain accounts for about 2% of total weight. Yep. So koalas be dumb. And it's funny when like cartoons tend to cast the koala as the wise one. Then Cyberweeze says, is the book of Hosea older than the book of Job? Lawrence?
No.
Yes, it
Is it?
is. Yes, absolutely, it is.
I thought that Hosea was written in the first temple times, and Job was written much later.
A lot
I'd
of
always
people
heard
think,
that
a lot of
Job was
people
the
think that.
oldest. Yeah.
So Job, it may be set to a to a later time, but its theology shows very clear later development. So Hosea, yes, first temple, and it would have been during like the Assyrian invasion or something like that. So around the 8th or
You're the first person
7th
I've heard
century.
say that.
Like
I've always heard
early
that because
or
of the
late 8th
language
century,
involved, it
7th
was very
century.
old.
Yeah,
So we're
a lot-
talking about the 700s BC.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so now I have all these creationists telling me that the Bible was written over a period of 1,500 years.
See, but the thing is, it's closer to 1,000. But so it's but yeah, Hosea is definitely older than Job. It very obviously is set in like the 8th century BC. Job shows much later theology, even though it is set like much earlier. Although it used to be accepted that the Book of Job was the oldest, but it's just simply not. That position is no longer really maintainable.
Well, the Pentateuch was written supposedly 1,000 years after all the events and it would have occurred.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you want to get down to the game of telephone here. The Bible is the reigning champion.
Yeah, and then the 1,500 years, they want to say that the Bible was written by the time Jesus came about, but they don't realize how much of the Bible, or I guess they're conveniently forgetting that you had another,
Okay.
that you had centuries more of additions to the Bible when you talk about the New Testament.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And so the
according
Christians,
to
when the Christians refer to the Bible, they're not just specifically talking about the Hebrew Bible, they're talking about their own compilation in addition to that. So, yeah.
We really need to get a handle on this religious fan fiction. I think it's getting out of hand.
Yeah, Tomer, you were going to say something? I cut you
yeah,
off.
I was going to say that according to Wikipedia, the book of I'm saying Hosea, but it was written dated to 760 to 720 BC, and the book of Job between the 7th century and 4th century BC. So, yeah,
Pretty broad dating there.
Yeah.
yeah. It's a really hard book to date. Some scholars date it to like even the 3rd century. I've seen. I think that's way too late. But yeah, it's not the oldest book, even though it used to be thought that it was.
I got to read the rest of these chats. So Randolph Richardson says, perhaps a food critic complaining about overcooked meat simply got lost in translation. And then Matt White says, the more I learn, the more I see that Terry Pratchett's Small Gods, Great God, Om, Holy Horns, et al., was on point with its allegories. Loving your work. And then finally, the Mighty Jav for $20, thank you, says, all right, Genesis 9, it's time for more keeping in the family in Yahweh's terrarium.
Oh. Hey, at least they get to marry their cousins this time. They don't all have to marry their sisters and brothers. So, progress?
Okay, but I'm not paying for 2 weddings.
Somebody in the chat said that spaceless and timeless are 2 attributes of something that doesn't exist, and so is immaterial. Spaceless, timeless, immaterial. All the things that don't exist also share those categorical properties.
Oh.
Yeah, the way I heard it put was that the invisible and the imaginary look very much alike.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, shall we read on?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and finish out with chapter 9, I guess. Let's see. I forgot where I was at. Oh yeah, okay. Only you no, because you ended off at verse 6, so I gotta pick up.
I think it
7.
was 8. I think it was 8.
It's 7 because he ended off at, for in his own image God made mankind. So 7.
Verse.
Yeah. And you be fruitful and multiply, abound on the earth and multiply in it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, As for me, I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the domestic animals, and every animal of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark, I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. Fire and brimstone being the obvious loophole. God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I shall make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on earth.
Okay, I want to jump in here.
Lot of
Just imagine an
repetitiveness.
abusive father who puts a bow or a corsage or some kind of pretty decoration like that in his child's room on the promise that I will never waterboard you again.
Oh, also, he specifically stipulates that when he sees it in the clouds, right? But most of the times when I see a rainbow, there are no clouds around it.
Plus, he needs to remind himself, oh, there's the rainbow. I'm not supposed to flood everybody.
Wait, I tie a string around my
needs a
finger.
sticky note.
I tie a string around my finger in a pretty bow to remind me not to waterboard my children.
And I like
dear.
that God and
Yes,
and I
Bill?
like
like I
that
said,
God
there's
puts like the rainbow. Just remember.
Other
God.
abuses are perfectly fine. It's just flooding that's no longer
Yeah, remember
allowed.
not to be an asshole.
Only flooding is against the rules.
You
Fire
know-
and brimstone opening up the ground and swallowing people. Plagues of locusts sending the angel of death. Boils, all kinds of stuff. Infesting a camp of your survivors with venomous snakes. Right, all of that is still on the table.
Apparently, he only wants to be boring and repetitive when he talks. He wants his smitings to be inventive and varied.
Oh yes,
Cruel and unusual punishments. You look
Exactly.
like salt to me.
Although,
There, you are
about
salt.
the bow, the word bow specifically, like you're thinking bow, like I tie a bow, but the rainbow is actually an arch. And if I remember correctly, one of the previous versions, and I cannot recall which one, I'm sorry, of the older flood myths actually had a god who possessed a bow, like an archery, I shoot arrows bow, who hung it up at the end of that. And if you have ever seen anyone who has a bow or you play a lot of Skyrim, you can see that typically bows are actually hung up with an arch up, because you're obviously not going to rest their weight on the string if they're still strung up. And then they form that arch. And so that's like an indication of peace. I'm putting down my weapon. I'm putting it on the stand. It's now, I'm not fighting you, kind of a thing.
Okay.
I couldn't remember
Skyrim,
which
but
one
then
it
I
was.
took an arrow to the knee.
I haven't heard that joke in so
Apparently,
long.
Aaron's the gamer.
I will say though that despite God's unlimited creative power, he tends to be most imaginative when it comes to the brutality that he imposes on people for inconveniencing him. It's where he dedicates the majority of his creative genius.
Oh, and I just wanted to point out something, that the word keshet in Hebrew can both mean like an arc and also a rainbow. So
Okay.
I'm studying for mathematics, so I know that there is a thing called arc connectedness, and yeah, that's
So
how I know.
geometric words are your jam.
Yeah, I got a couple more chats I got to read. So M. Doug for £5, thank you. All the children of Noah's kin and not a thumb between them. Okay, and then the Mighty Jav for $5, thank you. says God is so omniscient that he had to make himself a sticky note in the sky so that he doesn't accidentally drown his creations in the bathtub.
That's nice.
He
Okay.
has been going to anger management classes, though, for the rest of us. It was court ordered.
All right,
Ah.
Xerxes.
Also, keep in mind that later on we're going to read that apparently God does in fact forget this covenant and has to be reminded by one of his patriarchs before he annihilates his people again.
Didn't you
Remember the rainbow,
say?
God. Remember the rainbow. Go to your happy place, God. Stop being angry. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so
the sons
reading
of
on.
Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan.
I'm already
These
pissed
three
off.
were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was people.
Wait.
I just wanted to point out that in Hebrew, it's Shem, Ham, ve Yefet. So
Yefet.
thanks,
Well,
King James version.
Well,
That's-
the
that's
thing the
awesome.
thing is,
I'm
it
reading it in English.
transliterating isn't always great. It's so like yeah, these like when we say Jesus, right? It doesn't say that in the Greek. Like in the
It's
Greek, it says.
Yeshua.
Well, no,
Yeshua.
in the Greek, it
No,
that,
yeah,
that
it's
is what-
Greek.
that is what
That's
his
the origin.
that is what his
But in Hebrew, it's
his Hebrew
Yeshua.
name. Yeah, his Hebrew name would be that. But
Yeah, well,
like
this
when
is
we-
America, so now it becomes Shem, Curly, and Mo.
Yeah, exactly. so transliterating is always weird. So in the Greek, it would be Jesus, right? So like we generally don't say Jesus in modern English translations. But the thing is, yeah, we all know who it is we're talking about. So transliterating is unreliable. And
The J sound does exist in Hebrew, though, right?
Yes,
Because
it
it
does
seems like
exist.
it's flipping for a Y sound. Yeshua, Jesus.
Yeah. I think I don't know
Um,
why. I think it's something from Latin. I don't know.
I mean, it
Yeah,
definitely
okay.
might be. I'm not entirely certain.
yes, the original sound in Latin was yeah.
Let's
The
continue
original sound in
because we're
Latin was
getting into
yeah.
a very interesting,
but-
wonderful story that the Bible is known
Oh.
for.
Wow.
This is
Ah, yes.
definitely the kind of story you want to read your children in Sunday school. So yeah,
Do we
here
get to
go.
the cursing and the naked drunk
Yes,
people now?
yes.
The drunkenness of Noah.
Noah, a man of the soil, was first to plant a vineyard. He drank some of the wine and became drunk, and he lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be to Canaan. Lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed by the Lord my God be Shem, and let Canaan be his slave. My God, make space for Japheth, and let him live in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his slave." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
Okay, so we got a bunch of stuff to
Yeah.
talk about there. Yeah, I wish we'd kept verses 28 and 29 because they're their own topic. But yeah, so somebody walks into Noah's tent and sees Dad naked, and so he has to be cursed to be a slave.
And his son has to be cursed to be a slave. The kid who wasn't even there and has no idea what's going on. And
Yeah,
this is not at all a racist justification to kill everybody in Canaan because Jews.
So
It's
so
land.
the other kids have to walk backwards into their dad's tent. Why do they have to go into his tent? Haven't
To
we
throw a
established
blanket
that, hey,
over him?
Dad is naked, leave him in his fucking tent?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the kids walk into their parents' room. Oh, look, Mom and Dad are naked. Well, now I got to be a slave.
I do have a note on this from Alter. So while no one has figured out exactly what it is that Ham does to Noah, So some, as early as the classical Midrash, have glimpsed here a Zeus Kronos story in which the son castrates the father, or alternatively, penetrates him sexually. The latter
Yes.
possibility is reinforced by the fact that to see the nakedness of frequently means to copulate with, and it is noteworthy that the Hebrews associated the Canaanites with, man, I don't know what that word is. Well, sexual immorality, sexual impurity.
Sodomy.
I would also like to point out that there were also two interpretations. One is from the his name is the Ralbag in Hebrew, but I think his Latin name is Gersonidas. Okay, and he says that that Ham has sinned by indecency because he looked at his father's genitals, and another interpretation by Nachmanides is that the sin of Ham is that he did not care about the respect of his father, and he acted against his will. So it didn't. Yeah. So
That's
sorry,
much
I'm
more the
having problems with
interpretation
this-
I grew up
this-
with as a child, as a Christian. Yeah.
I'm having trouble with this interpretation because I'm just trying to imagine anybody's dad bod seducing their kids. I'm having a hard time with that. First off,
Apparently it worked
you
for
walk
God.
in.
basically, he told the others that his father was naked, and it wasn't expected to do that. So maybe maybe cursed because of that. I don't know.
Yeah, so I can see a kid accidentally walking into their parents' room without knocking first and finding dad asleep naked on the bed and going, and then coming out traumatized, eyes wide open, glazed, and confessing, I walked into the dad was naked. So rather than console the child, they decide
Well,
to
I
make him a
don't think
slave.
he is a child because he has a son. So I guess he's much more older than.
I know, but I'm
Wife,
making an
too.
analogy here. Even as an adult, because obviously a child wouldn't be in a situation where they might also, alternatively, in another translation, anally rape the dad. But I'm having trouble with that too, because if the other two kids walk backward to cover their father up, when the rule should have been stay out of dad's room, that doesn't compensate for the sexual act. There's not a that doesn't even compare. Hey,
There
I
are
saw dad
there are
naked.
several interpreters that point out that Ham Noah didn't curse Ham. He cursed his son Canaan. Canaan. I don't know how you say this in English.
Canaan.
Canaan. So there are several interpreters that say that Ham himself didn't sin. It was Canaan who hurt Noah. Basically, Canaan was the one who stripped Noah naked, or castrated him, whatever Lawrence said.
I mean, we can
Possible interpretation there. Possible interpretation.
Possible.
Possible
Allegedly.
we can look at this with the benefit of hindsight because apparently children raping their parents was not an uncommon thing to happen back then.
Lot.
Yeah, Lot and his daughters.
Well, we are talking about very close families.
Yeah,
I have to
very
say,
close.
though, that with Lot and the daughters and who their apparent descendants were, and the thing with Canaan and the descendants, a lot of these appear to be hit pieces, basically, because all the way through, when you get into, Joshua and the Judges, they're taking the promised land from the Canaanites who already lived there. And these often appear to be sort of hit pieces saying, oh, well, these people come of this disgusting corrupted stock that's cursed by God, or came about because, girls raped their drunk father, or all of this other nasty stuff. Because Moab and Ammon are the sons of the two daughters of Lot, respectively, by their father. And so this is a way to sort of dehumanize and degrade the people that you're going to war against. This is, it's something you see a lot, and it's very disturbing in that context, especially because, the story does literally say Ham, upset their father, and then Canaan was cursed, his son. But also there's a connection here between shame and nakedness. A phrase, a sort of more archaic phrase that might be used is they uncovered the nakedness of their father. That's used in reference to Reuben.
Also, I want to point out.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to point out that in in the Hebrew in the Hebrew Bible, it's the nakedness is not literally nakedness. Being naked in Hebrew means erom. In the Hebrew Bible, it's arva, which is like the pubic hair, like the area of the genitals. So, um, yeah, so they covered the genitals of the father, or the pubic hair of
They
of
threw a
Noah.
blanket over him backwards and made sure his bits were
Yes.
covered. Yeah.
His
Yes.
bits.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Lilith was saying, Sodom and Gomorrah on the
Mhm.
border of Canaan.
Oh my God! I want to also transliteration. Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh.
Yeah, Sodom is Dom, and Gomorrah is Amorah.
Wow.
The G doesn't
Gomorrah?
exist in Hebrew. Amorah, yes. I don't understand
Amorah.
why. Why?
Yeah.
I mean,
Fucking King James
multiple
Bible.
languages, Hebrew to Greek to Latin to German to English.
But how do you
Lots
get
of weird.
from? But how do you decide? Yeah, we're going to insert a G in here because fuck you. What?
I don't know.
I have no idea. It might have something to do with the Greek. The thing is, this happens a lot with the Greek transliterations too. Is sometimes they would use like a Y in a place. So like if you read the word transliterated kurios, they have that with a Y, so KY, but there's no Y in Greek. It looks like it should be read Kyrios or something like that, but it isn't, because in Greek it's kurios. So and then that just means Lord. So I don't know why translators do things the way that they do. And it does get kind of annoying.
Yeah, I always stumble my words because the Hebrew words are not like the English words, and
Mhm.
it messes me up. And especially on Genesis 10, which has a bunch of Hebrew words where
Names.
sometimes
Yeah,
yeah
names.
Hebrew names were just I don't know
Um,
why.
Americans
are we
have a
gonna-
long history of doing this. People would come through Ellis Island with their name from their country, and like, oh, okay, you're this now because I can't pronounce that.
Yeah, my friends came through with it. Their name was von Urbaniak, and it was changed to Herbig.
So
Mhm.
are we going to go ahead and blast through Genesis 10 since it's just lineage names, or are we going to stop at 9 for today?
Let me see. We could do. I just wanted to make mention of the numbers thing. Somebody put in the comments that Noah was drinking his angry juice, and somebody else. Oh, I'm sorry. That wasn't one of the comments. That was one of the chats that I was supposed to read. That was Kicker White Lion for 50 Czechoslovakian kroner. Says Ham told his brothers, "Oh no, Papa is drinking the angry juice again." And then Matt White makes the comment: "The Bible is a Jersey Shore prequel."
That's his son punching juice.
Yeah, and when I made the comment about how can you just see somebody naked and then have sex with them, even your own dad, your drunken dad, somebody in the comments said, "Remember, these people spend a lot of time hanging around goats." So
Ew.
yeah. So on the last note on this, so after the flood, Noah lived 350 years. He lived a total of 950 years, and then he died. And while that sounds ridiculous, we know that a lot of these times they were not talking about solar years. They were talking about lunar months.
Yeah, which is
Mhm.
still used in Judaism, like the lunar calendar is still used
So in other
in
words,
Judaism.
Noah lived 79 years.
It sounds
That's more feasible.
yeah. I don't really know.
And we've
All right, so
discussed in previous episodes the weirdness of the math and Sumerian numbers and how
Or
it
maybe
all.
Noah really
Yeah,
was
philology,
just an ancient
philology.
bastard.
yeah, I would like to power through Genesis 10 if it is just the names, because I don't want to.
yeah.
I want to
with
say
that
I want to
It's-
try
it's-
it because
it's all the descendants and stuff.
I think let's let
yeah,
Tomer
it's
do it.
I love
Yeah.
to hear Tomer do it.
Yeah,
Thank
let's
you.
hear all the Jewish
going to
names.
be interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start. I'll I'll jump from the English to the Hebrew because, you know. Okay. Let's start. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noach, Shem, Ham, and Yefet. I'm using the Hebrew words now because
Sorry.
fuck this book. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Yefet, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavan, Tuval, Meshech, and Tiras. Fun fact, Tiras in Hebrew means corn. So,
Okay.
yeah. And Yavan is Greece, but I don't know if that's connected. Okay. And
it is connected, but I'll mention it in a little bit.
okay. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rifat, Togarma. And the sons of Yavan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, Dudanim. And from the let's move this. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families and their nations.
Oh, so this is interesting here.
Okay.
We
Just
already
wait,
have
we got to
languages.
talk about this.
Yeah.
Wait.
So
The languages weren't divided until chapter 11.
so the issue here is when it says the Gentiles in yours, I don't know which one you're reading from, but Alter translates this as from these the sea peoples branched out.
Maritime people.
Yeah. Well, yes,
the sea
maritime
people.
people. So
in Hebrew, it's Iye Hagoim, which is literally the islands of the Gentiles. So,
interesting. Okay, so it's interesting that they would use islands there, because as you mentioned,
and
Javan is
maybe
Greece.
islands can be interpreted as faraway states, faraway lands. I don't know.
It could be,
Anything over the water.
yeah.
Okay.
But also, so the sea peoples, they were multiple groups of people. There were like 7 or 8 different groups of people that we would call the sea peoples, and most of them, we're not really sure where they came from. And the thing is, often they're said to be like the cause of the Bronze Age collapse, but I think it's more like they were a symptom of an already collapsing world, because some of them were very accustomed to piracy, and the thing is, people have to be kind of pushed into that thing most of the time. Especially,
Some have interpreted them as being the Plishtim or the Philistines.
right? Yeah. So the Philistines would have been one group of them. There were others throughout the Mediterranean. So, but they didn't help the problem, right? But they are often credited with being a root cause for the Bronze Age collapse. But they were multiple groups of people, seafaring, and from many different places that kind of they went in and raided places. So a good amount of work has been done trying to uncover it, but there is still a lot of questions.
Another interesting thing here that I mentioned just a minute ago is that this passage says that all these people went with their own languages to these regions, and it specifically lists, you're going to get there, but the city of Babel was founded by Nimrod, and we're going to read in chapter 11 that it is when they build the Tower of Babel that supposedly all the languages diverged. So we have a little bit of a conflict there.
I have had people genuinely angry at me that I pointed out that languages develop naturally when they're like, no, languages all came from the Tower of Babel. I'm like, they're not as fanatic about it as Noah's Ark, so there isn't quite as much apologetic nonsense going on, but people are still very much attached to that story.
That's
I mean,
why I
you
like
can
to
just see
bring
the
up
natural evolution of language.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I like to
alone.
bring up the example of Spanish, French, and Romanian, and of course, subsequently Portuguese being derived from Latin, and then of course Italian being derived from Latin by a different process, because people can't blame those languages on Babel, so they have to admit that languages do evolve naturally. That we watched this one happen.
And then you get a similar analogy to but they're within the kinds.
Yeah,
No, Russia was made up. Russian was made up.
A language that didn't exist 110 years ago was Cajun Creole. I don't know if you ever heard anybody speak Cajun Creole, but that is its very own language.
Yep, I did. I did get a sampling of that in a taxi from the airport to New Orleans.
Mm.
Yeah, English itself, there are all kinds of words that are loan words, like German words and French words, like Latin words, like buffet. The pronunciation, not buffet, like a
French.
English.
Yeah,
normally
especially
do.
when you learn French names in mathematics, it can mess you up because you have people that name Darboux, but in English it sounds like Darbox. So yeah.
In French, you just say
Yeah.
all the. In French, you spell every word with like 11 vowels and only pronounce 3 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
All right, so Tomer, I did enjoy hearing the natural accent for these. It's like I lived along the Texas Mexico border for much of my life, and I noticed the huge difference from natural natural Spanish speakers. Their pronunciation is so much better than anybody who learned Spanish and then tried.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's better to hear your version of this than anything I could possibly muster. So please
Why,
read
thank
on.
you. Oh, shall I read on?
Yes.
Sons of Ham.
Okay. And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mitzrayim, Phut, and Canaan. Fun fact: Mitzrayim in Hebrew is Egypt. Cush is maybe Ethiopia, and Canaan is Canaan, and Phut is I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think most people believe that Kush is Ethiopia. Yeah.
Yes, and
Mhm.
I don't want to say it because they'll be offensive. Okay, and the sons of Cush, Seva, Chavila, Savta, Ra'ama, Savtacha. And the sons of Ra'ama, Sheva, Dedan, yeah, that's it. And Cush, King James, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. What? What?
Apparently,
isn't it
when this
repeated
was
Yeah.
twice?
written, that was a proverb or a saying.
Right. So the Hebrew, which you can confirm this or not. You can confirm this or not. So the Hebrew, which says literally he began to be a mighty man. Does that work in verse 8?
He began to be a mighty man. Yes.
Okay,
He
okay.
began to be.
So
Basically, a mighty man means the first governor or something like that.
Yeah, so uses the same idiom that is invoked for Noah's planting a vineyard. The implication then is that Nimrod too was the founder of an archetypal human occupation. The next verse suggests that this occupation is that of a hunter, with his founding of a great Mesopotamian empire, then introduced in verses 10 through 12 as an ancillary fact. Perhaps his prowess as a hunter is put forth as evidence of the martial powers that enabled him to conquer kingdoms, since the two skills are often associated in the ruling classes of older civilizations.
Makes sense.
Okay, and this is verse 10, I think. Okay, and the beginning of the kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, Kalne in the land of Shinar. I don't know what the land of Shinar is. Jumping forward, out of the land went forth Ashur and built Nineveh and the city Rehoboth and Kalach. Rehoboth Ir. Okay, and Resen. And Resen between Nineveh and between Kalach. The same is a great city, and Mitzrayim begat. What is this? And Mitzrayim begat Ludim and Anamim and Lahavim and Naftuchim. Yeah, and Patrusim and Kasluchim. Out of whom came the Philistine and Kaftorim.
So the reading here is a little bit different. So I have, and
I don't know why. In the King James version, it's the out of the Philistines. It's marked in parentheses.
Yeah. So I
but
feel
it's
like
not
this,
in the Hebrew. And
I feel like
know.
this might help a little bit here. And the Lechabites and the Naphtahites and the Pathrusites and the Kaslahites and the Caphtorites, from whom the Philistines emerged. So it looks like this Alter's translation uses the, from whom the Philistines emerged, meaning the Caphtorites.
Mine has it after the Kasluhites, from whom the Philistines
Kasluhim.
emerged, and then
I
put
just
the
love this word.
Kasluhites after. Yeah, I'm just doing the best I can with the English translation, but it's there appears to be some argument then over which of the two groups the Philistines emerged from, but one of them came from Mizrahim.
Okay, well, we are at, what is this?
Canaan.
And Canaan. Okay, and Canaan beget Sidon, I think, yeah. Sidon, his firstborn, and Chet, and the Yebusi, and the Omri, and the Girgashi, and the Chivi, and the Arki, and the Sini, and the Arvadi, and the Tsimari, and the Hamati, and the border, I think, in the border? No, and afterwards were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, and though comes to, where is it? Gerar? Sorry, oh god. And Gerar to Aza, as though ghost unto Stoma, Amora, Adama, Tzovim, even unto Lasha. And those are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. Yeah, sorry I had to jump from the Hebrew to the King James, and it's kind of messed up.
At least you're able to
Yeah,
recognize meanings of these things.
Let me say,
You understand meanings of these names better than I do, so I'm glad you're reading it.
Yeah, but I enjoy saying that. I confess I enjoy saying this.
It's interesting though. In Canaan, you'll
if I'm
see
saying-
many of the tribes that later the Israelites will be commanded to eradicate. The Amorites, the Hivites, the Hittites, all of these, and I believe they accidentally make a covenant with the Jebusites, if my memory serves correctly. We'll see it when we get there. But
I just noted that I just got the note from King Xerxes that he had to go. And I'm sorry that I didn't get to see the note before he had to duck out. So, bye, King Xerxes. Thanks for the participation. Anyway, continue, please.
Okay, and god damn it. Okay, unto Shem also the father. Yeah, I mean I jumped. I jumped from King James to the Hebrew, and it's annoying. Okay,
I'm just laughing because I lament that I have been so conditioned. I mean, if you live north, like I said, I've lived along the Texas-Mexico border for much of my life. If you live north of the border and you stub your toe, you've been conditioned to say "ow." But if you live south of that border and you stub your toe, you're conditioned to say "I." And it's very hard to break that conditioning. And so I'm angry that whenever I get frustrated at something, if something falls apart, I'm trying to put things together, everything collapses, spills all over the floor, I say, "God damn it." Which never made sense. Even when I was a believer, there was no reason I should say that. And yet I'm conditioned to say, I can't figure out what to replace that with in my mind.
The thing is, it's fine. It's just a colloquialism. Like, that's just the language that we've been brought up in. Like, it's whatever.
This is the Blasphemers Bible, though.
It's true. I take comfort every time that I am taking the name of the Lord in vain and breaking one of the 10 commandments. It just,
I also have Hebrew curses, but I won't say them here.
Aww.
Okay.
I don't know. You won't understand. You won't understand.
True.
Or maybe you want to, but I'm just delaying the inevitable.
All right. Let's see if we can get through the rest of this.
Okay. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Ever, the brother of Yefet the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, Ashur, Arpachshad, Lud, Aram, and the sons of Aram, Utz, Chul, Gether, and Mash. And Arpachshad begat Shalach, I think it's Shalach, and Shelach begat Ever, and Ever, and unto Ever, and unto Ever were
I
born
think
two
that's
sons.
pronounced Heber.
Eber. Eber.
Sorry,
Don't
go
tell me
ahead.
how to pronounce stuff. Okay.
I have family with that name, but that's how they pronounce it.
Really, I feel sorry. Okay, and unto Ever were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Yoktan. Yoktan, I don't know. And Yoktan begat, and
Hold on a
Yoktan
second.
begat.
Hold on a
yes.
second. One was named Peleg because in his time the earth was divided.
Yes,
Yeah, it seems
the,
like
the translation is
root.
Niflega. Is divided Niflag. Peleg Niflag.
So
yeah,
it
that
looks
could be the breakup of the continent, so why not?
right. There's the breakup of the continents and interpretation. There's also the one with the Tower of Babel interpretation.
Oh, that was when the Tower of Babel division happened and the
Yeah.
linguistic breakdown. Okay, I mean,
Fun fact.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
just supposed to
Peleg-
believe.
Peleg
We're
is
supposed to believe that all the continents were joined until until Tower of Babel, and then suddenly South America went charging away at highway speeds.
I've heard the alternate explanation for what is it? Shoot. But anyways, young Earth creationists call it catastrophic flood geology. So the flood broke up all the continents too. So it wasn't over millions and billions of years that continents form. Was flood and bam, like that.
I
Oh.
mean that's what I heard too. So
I have another.
we
I have another
two
one.
Alternative.
I have another
ones.
one. Kent Hovind famously uses Peleg, and
The Hovind theory.
and yes, in the Hovind theory, the dividing of the earth is where all the land bridges disappeared that allowed the animals to get to places like
Oh,
Australia and such things. So this is where he says
sorry
it
about
is
that.
it is mentioned in the Bible. I'm just saying.
Now I remember plate tectonics.
No, we
But-
don't
but
have plate
not
tectonics. We
plate-
have magic invisible land bridges that God put into place so the kangaroos could hop to Australia, and then he
Mhm.
magically karate chopped them during the days of Peleg, and there's no evidence of them, so shush.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
shall I
Okay.
continue?
Please.
yes.
Okay. And Yoktan begat Almodad and Shalef and Chatzer Mavet and Yarach. Chatzer Mavet is a very peculiar word because it can literally means death garden. That's very
That'll be
interesting.
what I name my next kid. Yeah.
Chatzer Mavet.
Were they a poisoner?
Okay, and Hadoram and Uzal and Dikla, which is a modern name, and Oval and Avimael and Sheva and Ophir, which is a modern name, and Chavila and Yovav. All of these are the sons of Yoktan. And their dwelling was from Mesha. Mesha, yes, as though goes unto Sephar, a mount up to the east. Sfara, a mount to the east. And these are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues, and in their lands after their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah after the generations, and in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Amen.
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 Brilliant. Thank you for that. I have a few more chats that I have to read. So Matt White said Nimrod was a mighty hunter before Bugs Bunny made it an insult, changing the meaning of his name to idiot. And then let's see, we have Ariel, for $19.99. Thank you very much for that. Says, I read the Bible from cover to cover as a teen. It was a shocker. I also went to seminary. I am now gratefully religion free. You are all helping us so much. Love this channel. Thank you very much for that. And then Tiktaalik offers currency. I don't understand. ARS 100.
I think it's Argentinian pesos.
It's what?
Argentinian peso.
Okay. Says, I apologize for not being able to participate. I seem to have a software issue that I hope will be solved next time. Yes, please. And then it's Tiktaalik put in another one, another 100.
Argentinian peso.
Yep, thank you. I just wanted to say about the Hamites. It's interesting that one, all of them are people the Hebrews hated, almost like it was on purpose.
Yeah, it was. It's a table of nations. That's just kind of how that worked out to be.
The hit piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, and two, when most of them are Afro-Asiatic peoples, Hittites are in reality Indo-European who have a completely different lineage. And then there's some others jumping in. The Mighty Jab for $15 says, wouldn't the continents moving that fast reflood the land? Everyone gets thrown to the ground and pop like watermelons. Then the miles high tsunami washes them all away. The end. Yep, pretty much. Okay, so we did Genesis chapter 8, 9, and 10.
Good work.
And gosh, I wonder what's coming next. So can't wait till next week to find out. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Lilith. Thank you, Lalandra. Thank you, Tomer, especially for your.
Yeah, I'm always available. I'm always available if you want me to. Or
Sure,
I
will put you on the mailing list. I do appreciate the. One last question for you. I sent you a message about this. What does Elohim mean to you?
To me?
Yeah.
God.
Okay, it's just God.
Yes.
It's not a collection of gods. It can't also be.
Well, if I wanted to say a collection of gods, I would have said Elim, which is, and if I wanted to say like the God, then I would say Elohim. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but it's also important to remember how language has changed over time. So like, yeah, Elohim could have been, a plural beforehand, but then eventually just kind of came to mean the single one. Yeah, so there's a long history to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've got a couple more. I've got another one for this one from Jessica, $19.99. Says, surely the Tower of Babel couldn't have rivaled the tallest buildings we have today, right? So why didn't God stop us from building the Burj Khalifa or the rest of the skyscrapers of the world today? Why allow the ISS? We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to the Tower of Babel.
Genesis 11 is the Tower of Babel. I forgot.
It is, yes. So the actually on that, we're almost done with the primeval history. So the when it comes to the Tower of Babel, it's let's just say it's a not even that thinly veiled metaphor. It's so blatantly obvious. They barely even tried to hide what they were really talking about, or even like present it differently. Babel is Babylon. Anyways, so
we say when we say Babylon or we say Bavel without the B. Bavel.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, there you go. Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, it's they didn't even try.
No.
All right, so I am looking forward to that next week.
All right.
We'll have to close up for this one. I've got to do the Book of Mormon lessons in just under an hour. And thank you, everybody, for being involved. See you next week. And I am really enjoying this show. Lawrence, thank you especially.
Me too.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's really nice that I get to do this, because when I was doing the readings for Genesis early on in my show, it was bad. It was really, really bad. So now that I have gained some more knowledge about this stuff, it's nice to redeem myself in those from those early readings. So I really appreciate the chance to get to do this show.
Brilliant. All right. See you all next week. Let's close it up.